Hello, welcome to the second episode in my 50 Years of Olympus Camera Ownership series. In this episode we look at the Olympus Trip 35, which captured the first pictures I ever sold or had published. Please forgive her looks, she was a working tool for many years. The Trip 35 uses the full area of 24 by 36 mm of a 35 mm picture format, where the Penny EE uses half that area. The Trip 35 is essentially a point-and-shoot camera if you line up the two red markings, the A and the group shot, on the dial. The ASA or ISO speed setting is accomplished by rotating the silver dial to reveal the chosen ISO speed in the window cutout. Before you load a film, move the control dial from the auto setting to any aperture value. On the lower left of the camera is a little latch which you need to engage and pull down in order to open the rear of the camera. This is best done with a fingernail. Load your film by pushing up the rewind crank to make space for the film to be put in the film chamber. I always keep my film in the plastic tub until required. Put the film in and then push down the rewind crank. You may have to rotate this to engage with the cutout on the film spindle. Now pull out a length of film and insert it on any one of the 4 easy load slots on the right hand side of the camera. They say easy load, but sometimes it takes a bit of getting used to get this right. Once you have got the film in the slot, rotate the winding crank and ensure that the drive sprockets are taking up on the upper and lower teeth of the film. Once again, ensure that the dial on the front of the camera is on an aperture setting, otherwise the shutter will not release. Once you are sure the film is advancing and it's taking up on the film spool, you can close the back of the camera and snap it shut. Now fold out the rewind crank and turn it to the right to take up tension in the film, so that when you wind the film and this rotates, you know the film is feeding correctly. Now wind on the film and depress the shutter twice until the frame counter indicates you are at frame number 1. Close the rewind crank and set the camera to the automatic settings, which is the red zone focusing symbol and the red A on the aperture dial. When you find a suitable subject, frame the subject using the subject framing lines in the viewfinder and depress the shutter. If there's sufficient exposure, the camera will release the shutter and capture your image. If there is insufficient exposure, the camera will raise a red flag in the viewfinder and lock the shutter so that you cannot take a poorly exposed photograph. The zone focusing system is simple. The head and shoulders portrait and the waist level portrait settings are intended to be used at 1 meter and 1.5 meters respectively from your subject. If using either of these two, you must make use of the parallax framing lines which are inside the main framing line in the viewfinder. Centrally locate your subject using these interior marks as your reference. The head and shoulders portrait setting is to be used as described. Get your subject head and shoulders only in the frame. The next symbol is to be used with the subjects shown in the frame as drawn. The group person setting is to be used to photograph people full length, head to toe. The landscape symbol is, as the name implies, to be used for distant subjects like mountains and scenery. The Trip 35 allows you to use an external flash coupled with a PC socket. In more modern times we like to use radio triggers. In order to use the camera with studio flash, turn the aperture dial to the appropriate aperture for your exposure. This will allow you to use the Trip 35 with studio lights, and the camera delivers some surprisingly good results, as you can see in this example. At the end of the roll of film, the camera will no longer wind on and will not release the shutter. Pick up the camera and depress the film rewind clutch button, which you will find above the Made in Japan writing on the base plate. Fold out the rewind crank and wind the film back into its cassette. You will know it is completely wound back when you feel a release of tension on the rewind crank. Depress the rear cover latch and the back will pop open. Lift the rewind crank and retrieve your film. Repeat the process for more fun. I have had several inquiries about how to date an Olympus camera. The trick is to lift the film pressure plate is normally held in place by a sliding spring on a pin. Examination of the pressure plate will reveal a stamped number in red ink. The first symbol is the factory which made the camera. The second is the year number. The third is the month. In this case, August 1973. The Pen EE half-frame camera shows it was manufactured in July 1962. Here is the full explanation of the pressure plate date coding. The numbers 1 to 0 would indicate the year of the decade. Numbers 1 to 9 indicate the months of January to September, with X, Y, and Z being October, November, and December. Replacing the pressure plate is simply a matter of ensuring that the cutouts to go around the sprocket teeth are closest to the hinge, sliding the spring across the pin, sliding the other one along its pin, and pressing in the middle of the plate with your finger to ensure it's securely clipped. For those interested in the specifications of the camera, here they are. Should you wish to obtain an Olympus Trip 35 of your own, a survey in August 2019 shows that prices on eBay vary from around about $200 for a mint original metal shuttered version from the 1960s to about £90 for refurbished ones from England. In the next video, we'll look at the cameras that I was able to purchase with the money I made using this battered old Trip 35, the Olympus OM1s. Thank you for watching.